The sun was setting over Willow Creek, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The small Midwestern town was quiet, except for the sound of crickets chirping and the occasional bark of a dog in the distance. 10-year-old Ethan Foster sat on the edge of the riverbank, his legs dangling over the soft grass. Beside him, Lily Monroe leaned back on her hands, her blonde hair catching the last rays of sunlight. Ethan glanced at her, trying to think of something clever to say. She had always been smarter than him, even at their young age. Her quick answers and bright ideas made her stand out in school, but she never acted like she was better than anyone else. That was one of the reasons Ethan liked her so much. They had been best friends since they were little, and spending time with her felt as natural as breathing. "Do you think we'll ever leave this place?" Ethan asked suddenly, breaking the peaceful silence between them. Lily turned to look at him, her green eyes wide with curiosity. "What do you mean? Like move away?" He shrugged, picking at a blade of grass. "Yeah, I guess. Everyone says there's more to the world than just Willow Creek. Bigger cities, different people. Maybe even aliens someday." Lily laughed, a light, musical sound that made Ethan smile despite himself. "Aliens? You've been reading too many comics, Ethan." "I'm serious," he insisted, sitting up straighter. "Scientists say there are billions of stars out there. Some of them probably have planets like ours. And if those planets have life, then yeah, aliens could be real." Lily tilted her head, considering his words. "Okay, fine. Let's say aliens exist. What would you do if you met one?" Ethan thought about it for a moment. "I'd ask them if they wanted to be friends," he said finally. Then, after a pause, he added, "And then I'd show them how cool Earth is. Like rivers and trees and stuff." Lily grinned. "You're such a dork." They both laughed, the sound echoing softly across the water. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only noises came from the gentle rustling of leaves and the occasional splash of a fish jumping in the river. It was one of those perfect summer evenings where everything seemed to slow down, giving them time to just be kids without worrying about anything else. After a while, Lily broke the silence. "Do you think we'll still be friends when we grow up?" Ethan looked at her, surprised by the question. "Of course we will. Why wouldn't we be?" She shrugged, staring down at the ground. "I don't know. People change, I guess. Sometimes they forget about the people who mattered to them before." Ethan frowned, not liking the idea of losing Lily. "Well, I won't forget you, ever." Lily smiled faintly, though there was still a hint of sadness in her expression. "Promise?" Without hesitation, Ethan nodded. "I promise." There was another long pause before Ethan spoke again, his voice quieter this time. "Hey, Lily. What if we didn't just stay friends? What if we got married instead?" Lily's eyes widened in surprise, and for a second, Ethan worried he'd said something wrong. But then she burst out laughing, clutching her stomach as tears formed in the corners of her eyes. Ethan felt his cheeks grow hot, embarrassed by her reaction. "It's not funny," he protested, crossing his arms. "Yes, it is," she managed to say between giggles. "We're only 10, Ethan, so?" He shot back, trying to defend himself. "People can make promises now and keep them later, right? Like saving money for a bike or something." Lily wiped her eyes, still smiling. Okay. If you're going to be so serious about it, I'll hold you to your promise. But you have to mean it." Ethan looked at her, his face solemn. "I mean it. I'll marry you when we grow up." For a moment, Lily studied him, as if trying to decide whether he was joking or not. Finally, she stuck out her hand. "Deal." They shook on it, sealing their pact under the fading light of the sunset. Neither of them realized how much that simple promise would shape their lives in the years to come. Life in Willow Creek continued as usual after that evening. Ethan and Lily spent their days climbing trees, riding bikes, and exploring the woods behind Ethan's house. They dreamed big dreams, imagining all the adventures they would have once they grew up. To them, the future seemed endless, full of possibilities and excitement. But things began to change during the summer before 6th grade. One afternoon, while playing catch in Ethan's backyard, Lily told him some news that left him stunned. "We're moving," she said quietly, avoiding his gaze. Ethan froze, the baseball slipping from his fingers and rolling into the grass. "What? Where?" "Chicago," Lily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "My dad got a new job, and we leave next week." Next week. The words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He had known Lily his entire life. How could she just leave like that? "But why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. Lily shrugged helplessly. "Mom and Dad wanted to wait until everything was official. I didn't want to believe it myself." Ethan didn't know what to say. His mind raced with questions. Would they still see each other? Could they write letters or talk on the phone? Or would this be the last time he ever saw her? Before he could ask any of these things, Lily reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. "Here," she said, handing it to him. "It's my address and phone number. Promise me you'll write, okay?" Ethan took the paper, his fingers trembling slightly. "I promise." They hugged goodbye that day, holding on to each other longer than usual. As Lily walked away, Ethan stood in the driveway, watching until she disappeared around the corner. He felt a strange emptiness settle in his chest, like a part of him had gone missing. Over the next few weeks, Ethan tried to stay in touch. He sent letters and called whenever he could, but the responses grew fewer and farther between. Eventually, the calls stopped altogether, and his letters came back marked "Return to Sender." No matter how hard he tried, Ethan couldn't reach Lily anymore. Years passed and life moved on. Ethan grew taller, his voice deepened, and he started high school. He made new friends and joined the football team, but no matter how busy he got, he never forgot about Lily. On quiet nights, he would sit by his bedroom window, staring at the stars and wondering where she was. Sometimes he thought about the promise they had made all those years ago. Was it silly to still care about something from childhood? Maybe, but deep down, Ethan believed that promises mattered, even the ones made by kids who didn't yet understand how complicated life could be. As he drifted off to sleep each night, Ethan held on to the hope that someday, somehow he would find Lily again. And when that day came, he vowed to keep the promise he had made under the Willow Creek sky, to love her, to cherish her, and to stand by her side no matter what. Years went by, and the world changed in ways no one could have predicted. By the time Ethan was 25, Earth had become a very different place. The air was thicker with pollution, and the summers were hotter than ever before. News reports spoke of rising oceans swallowing entire cities and crops failing due to extreme weather. Humanity was struggling to survive, and governments around the globe scrambled to find solutions. Ethan, now a grown man with broad shoulders and a steady gaze, had joined Starfleet Command, a program dedicated to exploring space and finding new homes for humanity. It wasn't something he'd dreamed of as a kid. Back then, his only dream had been about Lily, but as he grew older, Ethan realized that helping others might be a way to honor the promise he made all those years ago. If he couldn't find Lily yet, maybe he could help save people like her people, who deserved a better future. Starfleet Command was based on a massive orbital station called Nova Base. The station buzzed with activity day and night, filled with scientists, engineers, pilots, and diplomats working together to push humanity's boundaries. Ethan quickly proved himself as one of their best pilots. He had a natural talent for flying spacecraft, able to navigate even the trickiest routes through asteroid fields or uncharted nebulae. His superiors praised him often, but Ethan didn't care much about the praise. What he cared about was making a difference, Despite his success, there was always an emptiness inside him. On quiet nights when the hum of the station faded into the background and he lay awake in his bunk, Ethan would think about Willow Creek. He pictured the riverbank where he and Lily used to sit, the way the fireflies lit up the summer evenings, and the sound of her laughter. Sometimes he wondered if she was still out there somewhere, thinking about him too. One morning, Ethan received orders to report to Mission Control. When he arrived, he found Commander Harris waiting for him. Harris was a tall, stern-looking man with sharp features and a reputation for being tough but fair. He handed Ethan a datapad without saying a word. "What's this?" Ethan asked, scrolling through the information. "It's classified," Harris replied. "But since you're one of our top pilots, I thought you should take a look." The file contained details about a project called Elysium. From what Ethan could gather, Elysium was a distant planet chosen as a potential site for human colonization. It was described as having fertile soil, clean water, and a stable climate, everything Earth desperately needed. But what caught Ethan's attention most was the list of names attached to the file. These were the people selected to settle on Elysium, individuals deemed essential to humanity's survival. Teachers, doctors, engineers, farmers, all highly skilled professionals. And then, buried near the bottom of the list, Ethan saw a name that made his heart skip a beat. Lily Monroe. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. He stared at the screen, reading the name over and over again to make sure he wasn't imagining it. Lily Monroe. It was really her. She was alive and she was part of this project. "Is something wrong, Foster?" Harris asked, noticing the change in Ethan's expression. "No, sir," Ethan said quickly, forcing himself to stay calm. "I just didn't expect to see someone I know on the list." Harris raised an eyebrow. "Someone you know?" Childhood friend," Ethan explained. "We lost touch years ago." Harris studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Well, consider yourself lucky. You're scheduled to lead a reconnaissance mission to Elysium next week. Maybe you'll get the chance to reconnect." Ethan tried to keep his excitement hidden, but inside, his mind was racing. This was his chance not just to explore a new planet, but to find Lily again. After all these years, fate had finally brought her back into his life. The days leading up to the mission felt like both an eternity and the blink of an eye. Ethan spent hours preparing, reviewing maps of Elysium and running simulations of possible scenarios. He wanted everything to go perfectly, not just because it was his job, but because he couldn't bear the thought of messing this up. Finding Lily again was more important to him than anything else. On the morning of the launch, Ethan stood in the docking bay, staring at the sleek silver ship that would carry him across the stars. Its name, Aurora, was painted in bold letters along its side. Around him, technicians bustled about, performing last-minute checks and securing cargo. The air smelled faintly of metal and oil, mixed with the electric charge of anticipation. As Ethan climbed aboard, he took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. Flying missions was nothing new to him, but this one felt different. This time, it wasn't just about duty or exploration. This time, it was personal. The journey to Elysium took several days. During that time, Ethan kept mostly to himself, spending hours staring out the viewport at the endless expanse of stars. He thought about Lily constantly, wondering what she was like now. Was she still the same girl who laughed at his jokes and believed in big dreams? Or had life changed her in ways he couldn't imagine? When the Aurora finally entered Elysium's orbit, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The planet below was breathtakingly beautiful. Rolling hills covered in lush greenery stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with sparkling lakes and rivers. The sky above was a brilliant shade of gold, with wisps of violet clouds drifting lazily across it. It looked like paradise. "This is it," Ethan whispered to himself, feeling a mix of awe and determination. Somewhere down there was Lily, and He was going to find her after landing. Ethan stepped out onto the surface of Elysium, his boots sinking slightly into the soft grass. The air was fresh and cool, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. For a moment, he closed his eyes and let himself soak it all in. Then, remembering why he was here, he opened them again and got to work. His first task was to locate the main settlement. According to his briefing, it was a small community built near a large lake, designed to serve as a hub for agriculture and research. As he approached, Ethan noticed rows of crops stretching across the land, tended to by settlers, wearing simple uniforms. Children played nearby, laughing and chasing each other, while adults worked diligently under the golden sun. Ethan scanned the area, searching for any sign of Lily, but with so many people moving about, it was hard to pick out individual faces. Frustrated but unwilling to give up, he decided to ask around. Surely someone would recognize her name. He approached a woman standing by a field of wheat, her hands stained with dirt from planting seeds. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I'm looking for someone named Lily Monroe. Do you know her?" The woman frowned, thinking for a moment. "Lily? Oh yes, I think so. She works in hydroponics, over by the greenhouse." Ethan thanked her and hurried toward the greenhouse, his heart pounding with anticipation. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if his body knew how much this moment meant to him. When he reached the entrance, he paused, taking a deep breath to compose himself. Then, steeling his nerves, he pushed open the door and stepped inside. Greenhouse was warm and humid, filled with the vibrant colors of plants growing in neat rows. Sunlight filtered through the glass roof, casting dappled shadows on the ground. And there, kneeling beside a tray of seedlings, was Lily. She looked older now, of course. Her blonde hair was tied back in a loose braid, and there were faint lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. But she was still unmistakably the same girl who had once promised to hold him to his word. Ethan's throat tightened, and for a moment he couldn't speak. All he could do was stand there, watching her as memories flooded back, memories of fireflies, rivers, and childhood promises made under the stars. Finally, Lily glanced up and saw him. At first, confusion flickered across her face. Then recognition dawned, and her eyes widened in shock. "Ethan?" she whispered, barely audible over the rustling of leaves. He nodded, managing a small smile. "Hey, Lily." For a long moment, neither of them moved. They simply stared at each other, as if trying to confirm that this wasn't a dream. Then, slowly, Lily rose to her feet, brushing dirt off her hands. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Ethan took a step closer, his voice trembling slightly. I promised I'd find you." Lily blinked, tears welling up in her eyes. "You did," she said softly. "You actually did." And for the first time in years, Ethan felt whole again. Ethan and Lily stood in the greenhouse, surrounded by the vibrant greens of growing plants. The air was thick with the earthy smell of soil and the faint hum of irrigation systems. Neither of them spoke for a while, each trying to process the reality of their reunion after so many years apart. Ethan felt as though time had stopped, leaving only the two of them in this moment. He couldn't take his eyes off her, afraid that if he looked away, she might disappear again. Finally, Lily broke the silence. "How did you find me?" Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, like she was afraid to ask but needed to know. Ethan hesitated, unsure how much to tell her. "It's complicated," he said slowly. "I'm here on a mission. My team is exploring Elysium to see if it can support more settlers. When I saw your name on the list of colonists, I knew I had to come." Lily frowned slightly, her brow furrowing. "My name? What do you mean?" Ethan explained about the classified files he'd seen back at Nova Base, the lists of people selected for Elysium, including her. At first, Lily seemed surprised, then thoughtful. She crossed her arms over her chest, staring at the ground as if trying to piece something together. "I didn't know my name was on any kind of list," she admitted quietly. "They just came to our house one day and told us we were moving here. They said it was important, that Earth needed people like me to help grow food for the future. But no one asked me if I wanted to go. One day I was living in Chicago, and the next, I was packing my bags for a spaceship." Her words carried a weight that Ethan hadn't expected. He could hear the sadness in her voice, the sense of being uprooted without choice. It made him angry, not at her, but at the system that had taken her away from everything she knew. He wanted to say something comforting, but nothing felt right. Instead, he just listened. "They promised it would be temporary," Lily continued. "That once things got better on Earth, we could go back. But now," she trailed off, shaking her head, "now it feels like they've forgotten about us." Ethan reached out instinctively, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said sincerely. "I wish I could have been there for you." "If I'd known, you couldn't have done anything," Lily interrupted gently. "You were just a kid, Ethan. We both were. And look at you now, you're a pilot, traveling across the stars. That's pretty amazing." Ethan smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, but none of that matters if I don't have someone to share it with." The comment hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Lily glanced at him, her cheeks flushing slightly before she turned away. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The quiet stretched on, filled only by the sounds of trickling water and rustling leaves. Eventually, Lily cleared her throat. "So what happens now? Are you just going to leave after your mission is done?" Ethan shook his head firmly. "No, not until I figure out a way to help you." "Help me?" Lily echoed, raising an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" Ethan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "This place, it's beautiful, sure. But it doesn't feel right, does it? Like you said, it's like you're stuck here. No one should live like that, especially not someone like you." Lily sighed, looking down at her hands. "It's not so bad. I mean, we have food, shelter, and work that actually matters. But yeah, sometimes it feels suffocating. There's no freedom here, Ethan. Everything is controlled, what we grow, where we go, even who we talk to. It's like they're afraid we'll mess up their perfect little experiment." Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening. "That's why I want to help you. Maybe there's a way to make things better for everyone here, not just you." Lily studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, finally, she gave a small nod. "Okay, let's say I believe you. Where do we start?" Over the next few days, Ethan and Lily worked together to gather information about the settlement. They started small, asking questions and observing the daily routines of the other settlers. Most people seemed content enough, focused on their tasks without questioning the rules. But Ethan noticed subtle signs of unrest, a muttered complaint here, a furtive glance there. It was clear that not everyone trusted the governing council that ran Elysium. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of gold and violet, Ethan and Lily sat by the lake near the settlement. The water shimmered under the fading light, reflecting the colors above. They had brought notebooks filled with scribbled notes and diagrams, piecing together what they'd learned so far. "There has to be a way to expose what's happening here," Ethan said, tapping his pen against the paper. "If we can show the rest of the galaxy how the council is controlling everyone, maybe we can force them to change." "But how?" Lily asked, leaning back on her hands. "We can't exactly send messages to Earth. All communications are monitored." Ethan frowned, thinking hard. "We'll need proof, something undeniable. Records, documents, anything that shows the council's true intentions." Lily nodded slowly. "I think I know where to find it. There's a central hub in the main building where all the data is stored. If we can get access to it." "We can't just walk in there," Ethan interrupted. Security is tight. We need a plan. For the next hour, they brainstormed ideas, weighing the risks and benefits of each approach. By the time the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, they had a rough outline of what to do. It wasn't foolproof, but it was a start. As they packed up their notes and headed back to the settlement, Ethan couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. For the first time in years, he felt like he had a purpose beyond flying missions or following orders. Helping Lily and the others trapped on Elysium was something worth fighting for. When they reached the edge of the settlement, Lily stopped and turned to face him. "Thank you," she said softly, "for coming here, for caring." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling at her words. "I promised I'd find you, remember? And I always keep my promises." Lily returned his smile, though there was still a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Just promise me one more thing. Anything. That whatever happens, we'll face it together." Ethan nodded without hesitation. Together. As they walked side by side toward the glowing lights of the settlement, Ethan felt a renewed sense of determination. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but as long as Lily was by his side, he knew they could overcome anything. Whatever challenges lay in store, they would face them as a team, as friends, and perhaps as something more. The plan was risky, but Ethan and Lily didn't have much of a choice. They needed proof to expose the truth about Elysium, and the only place to find it was in the central hub, a heavily guarded building at the heart of the settlement. Every night, the council members updated records there, logging decisions, resources, and even private messages sent back to Earth. If they could sneak in and copy those files, they might have enough evidence to spark change. Ethan spent days preparing for the mission. He studied the layout of the building, memorizing guard rotations and camera angles. Lily helped by gathering supplies, a small data pad to store the information, a flashlight, and tools to disable locks. They worked quietly, careful not to draw attention to themselves. The last thing they needed was someone suspecting their intentions. On the night of the operation, Ethan met Lily near the edge of the settlement. Both wore dark clothes to blend into the shadows, and their hearts raced with anticipation and fear. This wasn't like flying a spaceship or tending crops. This was dangerous, and if they were caught, the consequences would be severe. "Ready?" Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible over the soft rustle of leaves. Lily nodded, though her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the datapad. "Let's do this." They moved cautiously through the settlement, sticking close to buildings and avoiding open spaces where security drones patrolled. The air was cool, and the golden glow of Elysium's twin moons cast long shadows across the ground. It was beautiful, but neither of them had time to appreciate it. Their focus was entirely on reaching the central hub without being seen. When they arrived at the building, Ethan scanned the area one last time. 2 guards stood near the entrance, chatting casually. Above them, cameras swiveled back and forth, their red lights blinking steadily. Ethan pointed to a side door hidden behind a row of bushes. "That's our way in," he murmured. Lily followed him as he crept toward the door, her breath shallow and quick. Once they reached it, Ethan pulled out a small device designed to override electronic locks. He pressed it against the keypad, and after a tense moment, the lock clicked open. They slipped inside, closing the door gently behind them. The interior of the central hub was dimly lit, with rows of servers humming softly in the background. Monitors displayed streams of data, flickering faintly in the darkness. Ethan led the way, guiding Lily toward the main terminal where the council kept its most sensitive records. His movements were deliberate, each step calculated to avoid triggering alarms. As they reached the terminal, Lily handed him the datapad. "Hurry," she urged, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "We don't have much time." Ethan nodded, plugging the device into the system. Lines of text scrolled across the screen as the data began transferring. While they waited, Lily kept watch, her eyes darting between the door and the nearby cameras. Every creak of the floorboards made her jump, but so far, no one had noticed their presence. Minutes passed, feeling like hours. Finally, the transfer completed, and Ethan unplugged the datapad. "Got it," he whispered, slipping it into his pocket. "Let's go." They retraced their steps, moving quickly but carefully. Just as they reached the side door, however, a loud beep echoed through the hallway. One of the monitors had flagged unusual activity, an alert that someone had accessed restricted files. "Run!" Ethan hissed, grabbing Lily's hand. They burst out of the building and sprinted across the settlement, dodging between structures and weaving through narrow alleys. Behind them, shouts erupted as guards realized what had happened. Spotlights swept across the grounds, searching for intruders. Ethan and Lily ducked into a storage shed, holding their breath as footsteps pounded past outside. "They'll find us if we stay here," Lily whispered, her voice tight with panic. Ethan nodded. "Already thinking ahead. We need to get off the grid. There's an old bunker near the edge of the settlement. They use it for emergencies. No one goes there unless they have to." Without waiting for a response, he led her out of the shed and toward the outskirts of the settlement. The bunker was hidden beneath a layer of vines and dirt, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Inside, it was cramped but secure, with shelves stocked with emergency supplies and a generator to power basic systems. Once they were safely inside, Ethan sealed the hatch and turned on the lights. Lily sank onto a metal bench, her face pale and her chest heaving from exertion. "Do you think they saw us?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted, pacing the small space. "But we can't stay here forever. We need to figure out our next move." Over the next few hours, they reviewed the stolen data. What they found shocked them. The Council hadn't just been controlling the settlers' lives. It had been conducting experiments on them, testing genetic modifications meant to adapt humans to alien environments. Some settlers had fallen ill or disappeared altogether, their fates unexplained. Worse still, communications with Earth had been manipulated, painting Elysium as a thriving utopia rather than the tightly controlled colony it truly was. "This is insane," Lily muttered, staring at the screen in disbelief. "They're treating us like lab rats." Ethan clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. "We have to get this information to Earth. If people see this, they'll demand answers." "But how?" Lily asked. "Even if we manage to send it, the Council will block it before anyone sees it." Ethan thought for a moment, then snapped his fingers. "My ship, the Aurora. It has a secure transmitter that bypasses local networks. If I can reach it, I can send the data directly to Nova Base." Lily frowned. "That's miles away. And the Council will be watching every exit point by now. It's our only chance." Ethan insisted. "I'll go alone. You stay here and keep safe." "No way," Lily shot back, standing up. "You're not leaving me behind. Not again." Ethan hesitated, torn between wanting to protect her and knowing she was right. They had promised to face this together, and breaking that promise now felt wrong. Finally, he sighed. "Fine, but stick close to me, okay? If anything happens, run." They left the bunker under cover of darkness, using the uneven terrain to avoid detection. The journey to the landing site was grueling, filled with moments of tension as they narrowly avoided patrols and surveillance drones. By the time they reached the Aurora, both were exhausted but determined. Ethan climbed aboard first, powering up the systems while Lily kept watch outside. As the transmitter activated, a wave of relief washed over him. The data was uploading slowly, but surely. For the first time since discovering the truth, he allowed himself to hope. Then, suddenly, alarms blared. Searchlights illuminated the area, and voices shouted orders. The Council had found them. "Ethan!" Lily called urgently from below. "We need to leave now." Ethan hesitated, checking the progress bar on the screen. It was nearly complete. Just a few more seconds, but the guards were closing in fast. Without warning, Lily jumped aboard the ship, slamming the hatch shut behind her. "Go!" she yelled. Ethan didn't argue. He fired up the engines, lifting the Aurora off the ground just as bullets ricocheted off its hull. As they soared into the sky, he glanced at Lily, who was gripping the edge of her seat tightly. Her expression was a mix of fear and determination. "We did it," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The data's been sent." Lily managed a shaky smile. "Now let's hope someone listens." As the Aurora disappeared into the stars, Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had risked everything to uncover the truth, and though the fight was far from over, they had taken the first step toward freedom for themselves and for everyone on Elysium. The journey back to Nova Base was tense and exhausting. Ethan and Lily barely spoke as the Aurora sped through the vast emptiness of space. Both were lost in their thoughts, replaying the events of the past few days over and over again in their minds. They had risked everything to expose the truth about Elysium, but now that they were safe aboard the ship, uncertainty settled over them like a heavy cloud. Ethan sat at the controls, his hands steady on the throttle despite the storm of emotions brewing inside him. He glanced at Lily occasionally, noticing how she stared out the viewport, her eyes distant and troubled. She hadn't said much since they left Elysium, and Ethan couldn't blame her. After years of being trapped in a place she never chose, only to discover the dark secrets hidden beneath its surface, it was no wonder she felt overwhelmed. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked finally, breaking the silence. Lily turned to look at him, forcing a small smile. "I'm fine, just thinking." "About what?" She hesitated before answering. "Everything. The council, the settlers. What happens next? What if no one believes us? What if they don't care?" Ethan frowned, gripping the controls a little tighter. "They'll care. This isn't just about us, it's about everyone who's been lied to or used by the council. Once people see the evidence, they won't be able to ignore it." "But what if they try?" Lily countered. "Governments always find ways to cover things up. Maybe they'll say we faked the data, or worse, accuse us of starting some kind of rebellion." Her words struck a nerve because deep down, Ethan knew she was right. Power often protected itself at all costs, and exposing the truth could mean facing consequences neither of them were prepared for. Still, he refused to let doubt take hold. "We'll deal with that when it comes," he said firmly. "Right now, we've done all we can. The rest is out of our hands." Lily nodded slowly, though her expression remained uneasy. For a while, neither of them spoke again, the hum of the ship's engines filling the void between them. When they arrived at Nova Base, they were greeted not with cheers or relief, but with suspicion. Security officers escorted them off the Aurora and into a sterile conference room where Commander Harris waited, his arms crossed and his face unreadable. Two other officials, a stern-looking woman in a gray suit and a man with sharp features and cold eyes, sat beside him. "What exactly do you think you're doing, Foster?" Harris demanded as soon as the door closed behind them. Ethan stood tall, meeting the commander's gaze without flinching. "We uncovered corruption on Elysium. The council has been controlling the settlers and conducting unethical experiments on them. We brought proof." He handed over the datapad containing the stolen files. The officials exchanged wary glances before the woman took it and began reviewing the contents. As she scrolled through the documents, her expression shifted from skepticism to shock. "This is disturbing," she murmured, passing the device to the man beside her. He examined it silently, his jaw tightening with each passing second. Commander Harris leaned forward, his voice low and measured. "Do you understand the gravity of what you've done? You went rogue, broke protocol, and jeopardized an entire colonization effort." "It wasn't a colonization effort," Ethan snapped, his frustration boiling over. It was a prison disguised as paradise. Those people deserve freedom, not manipulation. And what about your mission? Harris shot back. You were sent to assess the planet's potential, not play hero. I didn't plan any of this, Ethan admitted, his tone softening slightly. But when I found out what was really going on, I couldn't turn away. Not after seeing what they've done to Lily, to everyone. At the mention of her name, all eyes turned to Lily, who had been standing quietly in the corner. She stepped forward now, her voice calm but resolute. He's telling the truth. I lived there. I saw it myself. The Council doesn't care about helping humanity survive. They care about control. If you don't act, more innocent people will suffer. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of their words hung heavy in the air, pressing down on everyone in the room. Finally, the woman in the gray suit cleared her throat. The information you've provided is damning, she said. If it's true, and I have no reason to doubt it, we need to act quickly. But this isn't something we can handle alone. The public needs to know. Harris sighed, rubbing his temples. If we release this, it'll cause chaos. People will demand answers, and trust in the program will collapse. Better chaos than lies, Ethan replied sharply. People deserve to know the truth, even if it hurts. The officials exchanged another glance, clearly torn between duty and morality. Eventually, the man with the cold eyes spoke up. We'll convene an emergency session with Earth's governing bodies. In the meantime, you two are confined to quarters until further notice. Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but Lily placed a hand on his arm, silencing him. It's okay, she whispered. At least they're listening. Reluctantly, Ethan nodded, and the two of them followed the security officers to separate rooms. Though they were allowed to communicate via intercom, the isolation weighed heavily on both of them. Hours stretched into days as they waited anxiously for news, unsure whether their actions would lead to change or punishment. Finally, on the third day, the door to Ethan's quarters slid open, revealing Commander Harris. His expression was grim but not hostile. You should come with me, he said simply. Ethan followed him to the main observation deck, where Lily was already waiting. The massive screen dominating the wall displayed live footage of Earth. News anchors spoke urgently, their voices overlapping as headlines flashed across the bottom of the screen. Elysium scandal exposed. Council accused of human rights violations. Ethan and Lily watched in stunned silence as reports poured in from around the globe. Protests erupted outside government buildings, demanding accountability and justice for the settlers. Social media buzzed with outrage, amplifying the story until it reached every corner of human civilization. It worked, Lily breathed, tears welling up in her eyes. They listened. Ethan nodded, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over him. Yeah, they actually listened. Commander Harris cleared his throat, drawing their attention. This isn't over. There will be investigations, hearings, maybe even trials, and you two will likely be called to testify. But for now, he paused, his tone softening slightly. You've made a difference. Whether you realize it or not, you've given those people a chance to fight back. Lily smiled faintly, turning to Ethan. We did it, together. Ethan returned her smile, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. For the first time in years, he felt truly hopeful, not just for himself, but for humanity as a whole. Despite the challenges ahead, he knew they had taken the first step toward a better future. As they stood side by side, watching Earth spin peacefully below them, Ethan realized something important. Promises weren't just words. They were commitments, bonds that connected people even across time and distance. And though life had tested them in ways they couldn't have imagined, the promise he made to Lily all those years ago had guided him here to this moment, to this victory. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Because that's what promises were for. The weeks that followed were a wind of activity. Ethan and Lily found themselves at the center of a global storm, their names appearing in headlines and news reports across Earth and its colonies. They testified before governing bodies, recounting their experiences on Elysium and presenting the evidence they had gathered. At first, the process was overwhelming. Cameras flashed in their faces, reporters shouted questions, and strangers approached them with words of gratitude or anger. But as time passed, they grew more comfortable sharing their story, knowing it could make a difference. The revelations about Elysium sparked widespread outrage. Protesters filled the streets, demanding reforms and accountability from the council and other governing bodies. Investigations uncovered even more corruption, revealing similar practices on other colony worlds. The settlers of Elysium, once silenced and controlled, began to speak out, their voices uniting in a chorus of resilience and hope. For the first time in years, they felt seen and heard. Ethan and Lily played key roles in advocating for change. They worked closely with human rights organizations to draft new policies, ensuring transparency and freedom for all colonists. Their efforts earned them both praise and criticism. Some hailed them as heroes, while others accused them of causing chaos. But neither of them cared about the opinions of critics. What mattered most was helping the people who had been wronged. As the dust began to settle, Ethan faced a difficult decision. His career with Starfleet Command had been put on hold during the investigations, and now his superiors expected him to return to active duty. Flying missions and exploring distant planets had once been his dream, but after everything that had happened, he wasn't sure it still was. He had found something or someone far more important. One evening, as the two of them sat together in a quiet corner of Nova Base, Ethan finally voiced what had been weighing on his mind. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice hesitant, "about what comes next." Lily looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" "I mean, my life, my future." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Starfleet offered me a promotion. A chance to lead bigger missions, explore farther reaches of space. It's what I've always wanted, right?" Lily nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "It sounds amazing, but—" Ethan hesitated, glancing down at his hands. "I don't know if it's what I want anymore. Not without you." Lily's eyes widened slightly, caught off guard by his admission. "Ethan, I know it's selfish," he continued quickly, as if afraid she might interrupt. "And I'm not saying you have to give up your life or anything, but I promised you something a long time ago. Remember? Under the stars in Willow Creek." Lily smiled faintly, memories flooding back. "You promised to marry me." "Yeah," Ethan said, his cheeks flushing slightly. "And I meant it. Even if we were just kids back then, I think part of me always knew it was true. I love you, Lily. And I don't want to lose you again." For a moment, Lily didn't respond. She simply stared at him, her green eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and emotion. Then softly she said, "I love you too, Ethan. I always have." Relief washed over Ethan's face, and he reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "So, does that mean you'll stay with me? No matter where life takes us?" Lily laughed lightly, shaking her head. "You're such a dork. Of course I will." With their decision made, Ethan submitted his resignation to Starfleet Command. It wasn't an easy choice, but he knew it was the right one. Instead of flying solo missions, he joined Lily in working with humanitarian organizations, using their platform to advocate for justice and equality. Together, they traveled to different colonies, listening to settlers' stories and helping them build better lives. Eventually, they returned to Elysium, not as fugitives or outsiders, but as allies. The settlement had undergone significant changes since their escape. New leaders had replaced the corrupt council, and the settlers now governed themselves democratically. Crops flourished under fairer conditions, and children played freely under the golden skies no longer confined by fear. Ethan and Lily chose to stay, building a home near the edge of the shimmering lake. It reminded them of the riverbank in Willow Creek, where their journey had begun so many years ago. They planted a garden behind their house, growing flowers and vegetables side by side. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch, watching the twin moons rise above the horizon and talking about the future. Their wedding was simple yet beautiful, held outdoors beneath a canopy of stars. Friends from Nova Base, settlers from Elysium, and even some old neighbors from Willow Creek attended, traveling great distances to celebrate their union. As Ethan slipped the ring onto Lily's finger, he whispered, "I kept my promise." "And I'm glad you did," Lily replied, tears glistening in her eyes. Afterward, as the guests danced and laughed under the glowing lanterns, Ethan pulled Lily close and kissed her forehead. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" He murmured. She leaned into him, smiling. "From fireflies to stars, yeah, we really have." Life on Elysium wasn't perfect. It never would be, but it was theirs. Every day brought new challenges and joys, moments of laughter and quiet reflection. Together, they faced whatever came their way, drawing strength from each other and the bond they had forged through years of separation and struggle. Sometimes, late at night, Ethan would step outside and gaze up at the endless expanse of the universe. He thought about how far they had come from childhood promises to interstellar adventures, and marveled at the twists of fate that had brought them back together. No matter where life took them next, he knew one thing for certain. As long as Lily was by his side, he would always feel whole. And so, under the golden skies of Elysium, Ethan and Lily began a new chapter, a chapter filled with love, hope, and the unwavering belief that even the smallest promises could shape the course of a lifetime.